The Red River Rivalry, officially college football's most difficult rivalry to pronounce, kicks off this weekend at 11. And honestly, does anybody care? Seriously, ask yourself that question. Do they? Do we? If you look at this weekend, just from a Big 12 perspective, people are more excited, myself included, about the Kansas TCU game than they are the OU Texas game. Imagine telling that to an OU or Texas fan at the beginning of this season. Imagine telling them that at the beginning of any season in the history of college football. They'd think you were out of your mind. But that's just the way it is. That's the reality of football this year. That's what makes it so great. That's why we love it so much. But let's ask ourselves, why don't we care as much, right? Because this week, this game usually overshadows all the other great games that surround it every single time it's played in the season, right? It usually overpowers the SEC matchups that weekend, the Big Ten matchups that weekend, because this is such a great and historic game. But it's the first time since 1998 that it's been played with both teams unranked. They're both in the bottom four of the Big 12, which is kind of funny when you think about it, about how last year they shook up the whole whatever college football is. They shook up the world of college football. They moved to the SEC, and oh, poor Big 12. Oklahoma and Texas are gone. Well, now they are two of the bottom four teams in the SEC, with OU being the second to last team. I think the Big 12 is going to do just fine with who they have. OU is going to, in this matchup, a shell of the team that they were after they played Nebraska. They're going into this matchup a shell of the team that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season, but especially after that Nebraska game. After that Nebraska game, it was, oh my gosh, Oklahoma is back. It took him one offseason. Brent Venables, he just needed his culture in there. Lincoln Riley had no culture. We got him out, blah, blah, yada, 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 yada. All this stuff. They come back, they beat Nebraska, and the next week they go to Kansas State and they lose. Actually, Kansas State came to Norman and they lost. And then they go to TCU the next week and they lose. 2 games. The defense let up 96 points in 2 games. Both of them, obviously, losses. The last time they've had a defense that let up that many points in a 2-game stretch was 2018. But the difference between that Oklahoma team and this one is they went 2-0. They had the offense to overcome it. Now let's look at their offense, okay? Dylan Gabriel, he's their quarterback. He's had a fine season. Nothing incredible, but nothing close to bad. It's been fine. 1,200 yards, 43rd in the nation with that. He's had 11 touchdowns, tied for 25th at that, no picks, right? Nothing terrible. But if you're watching that TCU game, he took a terrible injury, horrible hit in the second quarter. He's been in concussion protocol, and in my opinion, and people's opinions around the country, especially with what's going on with Tua Tagovailoa, Oklahoma will be under the microscope to see how they react and how they deal with this Dylan Gabriel injury, and I think there is no way we see him out on the field against Texas. Now, they are being led on the ground by Eric Gray, transfer from Tennessee. This is his second year with the Sooners. He's rushed for 460 yards this season. Their offense has a great rushing attack. 15th best in the country for rush yards total and rush yards per game. They have a great rushing offense. So when you look at them having a pretty good quarterback and an awesome rushing offense, then what's their problem? Why are they losing all these games? And it's because we said it before. It's because of their defense. Their defense in their loss to TCU led up 686 yards, split just about evenly between passing and rushing. And that's almost worse, right? If it's one team that lets up 500 passing yards and like 85 rushing yards, you'd be like, okay, it's just a secondary. We got to focus on that. But they're getting gashed through the air, and they're getting gashed on the ground. TCU averaged 8.9 yards a play when they played Oklahoma. Now, over the offseason, they had 8 of their defensive players either transfer or declare for the NFL draft. So it's been a whole roster turnover for this team, right? On the offensive and defense side with how many players hit the portal or went to the draft. They've got new guys coming in, transferring, new guys stepping up. They've got a new coach. They've got a lot going on. And we said it last week when we talked about transfers, but it takes a while to get those guys used to playing with each other. Get those guys used to scheme, used to new coach used to new players. It's a lot of change, and you could tell when you watch their defense play. But let's go on to Texas. This is a team that, and I hate to say this, I hate to say it more than you think I hate to say it, but I do think it's a team that's better than their record shows. I don't want to give them any excuses, but in that Bama game, Ewers went out in the first quarter and they lost the game. I'm not saying they would have won it with Ewers there, but he was balling. He was playing incredible. He threw for more yards in the first quarter against Bama than any quarterback has ever thrown against a Nick Saban coach team. He was dealing. And he's back this weekend. Isn't that perfect? That's why we love college football, because it is Shakespearean almost, right? Guy gets injured, OU team's down, Texas team's lost two since he got out. He comes back, it's the prodigal son returning. They're going to beat OU. Quinn Ewers for Heisman. They're going to rattle off 10 straight. Texas is back, rank them, all this stuff. You hear it every single year from Texas fans. But he's back, and I do think that is something worth noted. I do think that's something that gives them an edge. Now, they're 3-2, but their 2 losses are by combined 4 points. 1 point loss to Bama. I don't even have to say how good of a team Bama is. Everybody knows it. And a 3-point loss to a good Texas Tech team that they played in Lubbock. So, this team could, I don't want to say easily, but they could be 5-0, could definitely be 4-1. And I do think they're a little bit better than their record shows. Now, we know who they have on the ground, Bijan Robinson. Last year, he had some Heisman buzz, got injured, had to sit out the last 2, 3, or 4 games. He has played incredible this year. He's rushed for 515 yards in 5 games, averaging a little bit over 102 yards a game, with 9 touchdowns, averaging 6 yards a carry. That is absolutely absurd. Now look at Oklahoma. They are ranked 119th out of 131 teams in rush yards given up per game. That alone, that stat just by itself, should be enough for you to think Texas is going to win this game. Because my prediction is, I think Texas is going to win this game. I don't think that Oklahoma's rush defense is near good enough to stop Texas's. I just don't think that. We're not going to see it this weekend, and I think Texas is going to win this game. But the awesome thing about this game, the thing that's so great about this game, is it so often doesn't come down to who has a better team. These games are always close. Let's look at this. An unranked Oklahoma team beat a top 25 Texas team 2 years ago. 2015, an unranked Texas team beat a number 12 Oklahoma team. 2013, an unranked Texas team beat a number 10 Oklahoma team. In the last 8 years, the biggest point differential has been 12 points. And in 7 of the last 8 games, each of them have been decided by a touchdown or less. This is a great game year in, year out, and I expect it to be no different this year. But I do expect Texas to come out on top. I think the whole story of Quinn being back, their team being just so incredibly juiced, and Oklahoma's team crawling into this one looking for any form of life. I just don't think that this matchup bodes well for the Oklahoma Sooners, and I think there's going to be a lot of Sooner fans driving back to Norman from the Texas State Fair listening to sad music.